When a liberal TV host attempted to ambush Abu Ammar Yasir Qadhi live on air, she had no idea she was about to make the biggest mistake of her career. It was prime time on a major television network, with millions watching live. The host, known for her gotcha moments with conservative figures, believed she had the perfect trap set. Her team had spent weeks preparing questions designed to humiliate Yasir Qadhi and attack his family values. But she had no idea what was about to unfold. As the cameras rolled, Yasir Qadhi sat calmly in his chair while the host flashed her rehearsed smile, the kind often used by media elites when they believe they're about to destroy someone's reputation. What happened next not only shattered the host's career, but also showed the world what it truly means to defend real values. It began with what seemed like an innocent question. Dr. Qadhi, you've inspired millions, transformed communities, and built a legacy of knowledge and faith. Would you say it's all been a matter of luck? She delivered the question with her perfectly practiced amal, the kind that makes you wonder what's really behind it. But Yasir Qadhi had seen this game before. Start softly, then sink the knife. He leaned forward slightly, his expression a mix of confidence and amusement. It's interesting that you ask that, Yasir Qadhi replied in a firm, controlled voice. The press loves to talk about luck. It's their way of minimizing success, suggesting that hard work and sacrifice don't matter. But let me tell you something about luck. Luck doesn't build communities. It doesn't inspire faith. And it certainly doesn't restore hope to those in need. The host's eyes betrayed her surprise. This wasn't the defensive response she had expected. But she pressed on, her smile tightening slightly. So are you saying that everything you've achieved is solely due to your effort? I'm saying, Yasir Qadhi replied, his voice growing more intense, that success comes to those who work for it. Yes, I've been blessed, but I've also worked harder than most can imagine. I've spent countless hours studying, teaching, and guiding others through challenges that seemed impossible. But there's something even more important. I've never done it alone. The host's eyebrows raised slightly. She thought she had found her opening, but she had no idea she was about to expose herself more than her interviewee. Let's talk about that, she said with feigned curiosity. Let's talk about the people behind Yasir Qadhi. Of course, Yasir Qadhi continued, when you mention the people behind me, you're probably thinking of my students, my colleagues. But let me tell you who really deserves the credit. My family, especially my wife. The host's face changed almost imperceptibly, like a predator sensing weakness. She thought she had found her angle. Ah, yes, your wife. You know, many people wonder about her role in all this. Some say she's too discreet to be the wife of such an influential scholar. Yasir Qadhi's eyes narrowed slightly, and the tension in the studio became palpable. Discreet? No, dignified. There's a big difference, though I understand why some in the media might struggle to grasp that concept. A nervous murmur ran through the audience. The host shifted in her seat, clearly not expecting that response. But she pressed on, now with a tone of faux concern that fooled no one. What I mean is, we rarely hear her speak publicly, unlike other leaders' wives who are very visible. Don't you think the people deserve to know more about the woman behind Yasir Qadhi? The people, Yasir Qadhi replied with pride and unshakable firmness, know exactly what they need to know about my wife. She's brilliant, prepared, and chooses her moments to speak carefully, unlike some who feel the need to fill every silence with noise. The audience murmured in approval. The host's rehearsed smile faltered for a moment as she realized her usual tactics weren't working. But instead of backing down, she decided to push further. Let's talk about achievements, she said, her tone turning more aggressive, because some people wonder if her greatest achievement isn't simply being Yasir Qadhi's wife. The temperature in the room seemed to drop by 10 degrees. Yasir Qadhi's expression hardened, and even the cameramen exchanged glances. What happened next would become one of the most talked about moments in television history. I'm going to be very clear about something, Yasir Qadhi said, leaning slightly forward. Since you want to talk about achievements, let's talk facts. My wife is an educator. She has led initiatives that have changed lives, and she has represented our community with more grace and dignity than many public figures the press idolizes. But of course, you wouldn't know that, would you? Because traditional media is too busy pushing its own narrative. The host, feeling she was losing control of the conversation, tried a new approach. Of course, Dr. Qadhi, but don't you think being married to you has opened certain doors for her? Yasir Qadhi let out a dry laugh devoid of humor. You know what's interesting about that question? It reflects exactly what's wrong with how some people think. Success isn't about doors being opened for you. It's about what you do once you're in the room. And my wife, she doesn't just walk through doors, she transforms every space she enters. The audience erupted in spontaneous applause. The host's face flushed slightly as she realized her narrative was crumbling, but in a tone of desperation, she made one last attempt. Surely you'll admit that your position, your influence, your power, all of that affects how people perceive her. Yasir Qadhi's response was immediate and sharp. You mean how people like you perceive her? Because let me tell you something about influence and power. They don't create character, they reveal it. And what my wife has shown in the face of every challenge, every attack, every unfair criticism is exactly why I'm proud to have her by my side. By this point, the host's smile had completely disappeared, but she was about to make her biggest mistake yet. Well, since you mentioned having her by your side, she said with increasing boldness, let's talk about that. Your lifestyle, Dr. Qadhi, the constant spotlight, the pressure, the scrutiny. Don't you think it's difficult for someone who didn't seek this kind of exposure? You know what's really difficult? Yasir Qadhi shot back, his voice charged with controlled intensity, seeing how the media twists every story to fit their narrative. My wife hasn't just adapted to this life. She's thrived in it, despite the constant attacks from those who claim to defend women's empowerment. The host leaned forward, thinking she had found a vulnerability. But the pressure must be enormous. The constant travel, the public appearances, the expectations. Some would say it's almost like a gilded cage. Yasir Qadhi's eyebrows raised slightly. A gilded cage? Interesting choice of words. Tell me something. Why is it that the media celebrates strong, independent women unless they're conservative? Then suddenly they must be trapped or caged. The audience murmured in agreement. The host's composure cracked a little as she realized her manipulation had failed again. I'm just suggesting, she tried to recover, that maybe this isn't the life she imagined for herself, constantly in your shadow. My shadow? Yasir Qadhi interrupted, his voice a mix of amusement and indignation. I think you're confusing shadows with spotlights. My wife doesn't walk in anyone's shadow. She shines with her own light. But of course, you wouldn't understand that, would you? Because the kind of journalism you practice isn't about truth. It's about creating shadows where there are none. The studio fell into an unnatural silence. The host producer was frantically speaking into her earpiece, but it was too late. She had chosen her path and was about to cross a line that would make television history, though not in the way she had hoped. Her next question left everyone in shock. Dr. Qadhi, she said, abandoning any pretense of professionalism, let's be direct. You're a powerful, influential man with resources. You could be with any woman you want, yet you stay with someone who, she paused for dramatic effect, ages beside you. Have you never thought about looking for something better? The silence that fell over the studio was deafening. Several audience members gasped audibly. Yasir Qadhi remained completely still, his expression unreadable for a long moment. Looking for something better? He finally repeated, his voice dangerously calm. Let me tell you something about real value, since that seems to be the only thing you understand in business. Yes, sometimes you look for a better deal, a newer model, a shinier option. But we're not talking about real estate or cars here. We're talking about my wife, my partner, the mother of my children. He leaned forward, his eyes locked on the host. And let me explain to you what real value is. Real value is someone who stands by your side when the cameras are off. It's someone who tells you the truth when everyone else just tells you what you want to hear. Real value is loyalty, integrity, and character. Things that, apparently, they no longer teach in journalism schools. The host's face paled. She opened her mouth to speak, but Yasir Qadhi wasn't finished. You know what's really fascinating? He continued, his voice gaining strength. You're here asking me if I've thought about looking for something better while demonstrating exactly why your audience is shrinking. Because you don't understand what real value is. You don't understand real relationships, and you certainly don't understand what true respect means. The audience erupted in scattered applause, but the worst was yet to come for the host. Her attempt to recover only dug her hole deeper. I didn't mean to imply, she stammered. Yasir Qadhi cut her off sharply. Oh, but you did. You said exactly what you wanted to say, and that's the problem with the media today. You make these insinuations, you throw out these loaded questions, and then you try to backtrack when someone confronts you. But let me explain something about real relationships. The host visibly squirmed in her seat as Yasir Qadhi continued, his voice now resonating not just in the studio, but in every home watching the broadcast. My wife and I have built something most people only dream of, a true partnership, a true alliance. Not the kind that appears in your gossip columns, not the kind you try to discredit with your malicious questions. We've faced challenges together, celebrated victories together, built a life together. He paused, letting his words sink in. The studio was completely silent now, every person hanging on his next sentence. And you're here suggesting I should look for something better? Let me tell you what that really means. You're suggesting I should trade loyalty for vanity, substance for superficiality, true love for a younger model. That's not just an insult to my wife. It's an insult to every woman watching this program. It's an insult to every person who believes in real relationships. The host producer was making desperate gestures to cut to commercials, but Yasir Qadhi was in full flow, and everyone knew interrupting him now would only make things worse. You want to know why I stay with my wife? He asked, his voice firm and clear. Because she's irreplaceable, not just for her looks, though she's beautiful inside and out, but for who she is, her strength, her grace, her intelligence, her heart. These aren't things you trade for something better. These are things you value and cherish. The audience began nodding, some even discreetly wiping away tears. But Yasir Qadhi wasn't finished. He was about to deliver the final blow that would turn this interview into a legendary moment. And let me tell you something else, he continued, his voice now filled with authority, filling the studio. The fact that you even asked that question shows everything that's wrong with how the media views relationships today. You think everything is disposable, marriages, commitments, values, all reduced to mere commodities to be traded in your marketplace of sensationalism. He gestured toward the cameras, the audience, the entire stage. You invite people onto shows like this, pretending you want meaningful conversations. But what you're really after is controversy, drama, that viral moment. Well, congratulations. You just got it. The host's fake smile had completely disappeared. She now wore the expression of someone watching her career collapse in real time. Dr. Qadhi, I think you're misinterpreting, she tried to interrupt. I'm not misinterpreting anything, he shot back firmly. And now let me tell you what everyone at home is thinking. They're thinking about their own relationships, their own marriages, the years they've invested in building something real with someone they love. And they're outraged by your suggestion that all that history, all that loyalty, all that love should be thrown away for what? For something newer? The audience erupted in applause, but Yasir Qadhi raised his hand to silence them. He wasn't finished. You know what makes our community great? He asked, leaning back slightly, completely in control of the situation. It's not just our success, it's our values, family, loyalty, commitment, the understanding that real relationships aren't about what's convenient or what looks good on magazine covers. It's about standing together through good times and bad. He settled into his chair with the absolute confidence of someone who had mastered the conversation. So no, I've never thought about looking for something better, because there is nothing better than my wife. There is no upgrade when someone has stood by your side in every battle, helped you become a better person, been your pillar in every storm. The host was now desperately shuffling her cards, trying to regain control of the interview, but it was too late. The power dynamic had shifted irrevocably. And let me tell you something else, Yasir Qadhi added, preparing for the final blow that would make television history. The real story here isn't about me or my wife. He paused, his voice now taking on the tone of someone not just responding to an attack but delivering a lesson. It's about you. It's about what you represent in today's media. He pointed at the host cue cards. You came here with your prepared questions, your little traps, thinking you were going to expose something. But the only thing you've exposed is yourself. You've just shown everyone watching exactly what's wrong with the media today. The producer was making frantic gestures in the host's earpiece, but she remained frozen, unable to regain control of the situation. Because you know, Yasir Qadhi continued, you thought you were going to humiliate me by suggesting I might leave my wife for someone younger. Instead, you've humiliated yourself by demonstrating that you don't understand the first thing about real relationships, true commitment, or authentic journalism. The audience in the studio began shifting uncomfortably in their seats, many nodding in agreement, some even standing up. Let me tell you what real journalism would look like, Yasir Qadhi said. It would focus on my wife's work, her initiatives, her impact on countless families. But of course, that wouldn't give you your viral moment, would it? That wouldn't fit your narrative. Yasir Qadhi leaned forward, his voice becoming more intense. You know what really bothers people about the media? It's not just the bias, that's obvious to everyone. It's the fact that you've abandoned real journalism in favor of cheap shots and gotcha moments. You've traded substance for sensationalism. The host tried to interject. Dr. Qadhi, we're just trying to ask the questions our audience. Yasir Qadhi cut her off firmly. You're trying to manufacture controversy where there is none. You're trying to insinuate that a man in my position would naturally want to leave his wife for someone younger because that fits your superficial worldview. But let me tell you something. Real men, true leaders, honor their commitments. They value the meaning of a true partnership. The audience erupted in spontaneous applause, drowning out any attempt by the host to regain control. But Yasir Qadhi wasn't finished. And here's the truth about true partnerships, he continued, now with a quiet confidence in his voice. They grow stronger over time. Every challenge you face together, every victory you share, every storm you weather, it all builds something that your superficial way of thinking can never understand. The host, desperate to salvage the situation, made one last attempt. Dr. Qadhi, we just want to have an honest conversation. Yasir Qadhi let out a short laugh. Honest? You want honesty? Then let's be honest. You came here expecting to humiliate me by suggesting my marriage is just about appearances or convenience. Instead, you've shown everyone watching exactly why people no longer trust the media. He gestured toward the audience, the cameras. Look around you. Every person here knows exactly what you were trying to do, and every person watching at home knows it too. They see through these tactics. They understand what real relationships mean. The host's face had turned a deep red. Her producer was making frantic gestures to cut to commercials, but Yasir Qadhi raised his hand. Let's not end this yet, because there's something else everyone needs to hear. The studio fell completely silent. Even the cameramen leaned forward slightly, knowing they were witnessing a moment that would be remembered for years. The reason your question about looking for something better bothers people so much, Yasir Qadhi said, his voice combining authority and genuine emotion, isn't just because it's disrespectful to my wife. It's because it's disrespectful to every couple who has aged together, to every relationship that has weathered life's storms, to every marriage built on something deeper than what you see on Hollywood magazine covers. He paused, looking directly into the camera. There are millions of people watching this right now, people who have been married for 20, 30, 40 years or more. They've built their lives together, raised families together, and you sit there suggesting that all of that should be thrown away for what? For a younger face? The host tried to speak, but her voice had lost all the confidence it had at the beginning. Yasir Qadhi continued without missing a beat. This isn't just about defending my marriage. It's about defending every marriage based on real love, true commitment, and genuine values. Because that's what makes our community great. Not the superficial values you're trying to promote, but the deep, lasting bonds that hold families and communities together. The audience erupted in sustained applause, several people standing up. The host producer had given up trying to salvage the situation. He knew this moment would forever be etched in television history. But Yasir Qadhi wasn't finished. His final words would become the most quoted part of this already legendary interview. Let me leave you with one final thought, he said, sitting up slightly in his chair. To everyone watching this, to every man and woman who has stood by their partner through good times and bad, who has chosen loyalty over convenience, who has built a real life with a true companion, you are the ones who make our community great. Not the media elite with their twisted values, not the celebrity circle with their disposable relationships. He turned to the host, who seemed to have physically shrunk in her chair. And to you, he said, I hope this teaches you something about real journalism, true relationships, and genuine respect. Because right now, the world isn't just watching me defend my wife. They're watching you expose everything that's wrong with the media today. The audience rose to their feet in a standing ovation. The host producer finally managed to cut to commercials, but the damage was done. Within hours, clips of the interview would go viral. Social media would explode with support for Yasir Qadhi's defense of marriage and family values. And even his critics would have to admit that this was a masterclass in turning a hostile interview around. Thank you for watching this powerful and unforgettable moment. If you were inspired by Yasir Qadhi's unwavering defense of family values, loyalty, and true commitment, make sure to subscribe to my channel for more thought-provoking content like this. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Let's continue to stand together for what truly matters: family, integrity, and real relationships. See you in the next video.